you get that shirt there, Hollywood?
And what about all them sequins? You might as well just be a dancing girl.
I got one thing to tell all you wannabes. How about you sit right there and cowboy up? Under these city clothes lies a cowboy, the rootinest, tootinest buckaroo you've ever seen. At least that's the way I see myself each night when I close my eyes and dream. But my outfit's surely lacking, except for these plastic boots up on my feet. I need a few more key items to make my costume complete. If you can't tell, I'm a cowboy by the tightness of my jeans. Come in for close inspection, cause they're busting at the seams. This Technicolor dream shirt, polished fringe and snaps, polished chrome, kicking spurs, and these purple sequin chaps. What ties it all together makes a woman wanna dance. This big old hubcap buckle that I cinched up to my pants. I've seen on all those cowboy movies how you've got to ride a horse. It's hard to learn how to ride by sitting on a 2x4. The object of my affection, my hope and my desire. Head on down to the NFR and set that place on fire. If I really wanna get there, really make it big, gotta get out of this city and buy myself a rig. It's got to be big and shiny, in keeping with the theme. It's got to have seat warmers to heat my tight-fitting jeans. If you can't tell, I'm a cowboy by the tightness of my jeans. Come in for close inspection, cause they're busting at the seams. Technicolor dream shirt, polished fringe and snap, polished chrome, kicking spurs, and these purple sequin chaps. What ties it all together makes women wanna dance. This big old hubcap buckle that I cinched up to my pants. Now I'm down here in Vegas, getting ready for the show. I didn't make the final, or even the short go, but I knew I had to try it. So I slipped the guard a 10 to put me on the biggest bull. His name was Whirlwind. Some folks call me a greenhorn, but I wouldn't call me that. It's making out of the shoe gate, and I fell flat on my back. Old Whirlwind tried to gore me, he tried to hook my spleen. I felt just like Superman in my tight-fitting jeans. Yee-haw! Can't tell I'm a cowboy by the tightness of my jeans. Come in for close inspection, cause they're busting at the seams. This Technicolor green shirt, polished fringe and snap, polished chrome, kicking spurs, little purple sequin chaps. What ties it all together makes the women wanna dance. This big old hubcap buckle that I cinched up to my pants. Wake up and I am groggy, half broken both my legs. In keeping with tradition, I ordered a bouquet. Learned a great big lesson on that fateful day. I am from the city and that's where I plan to stay. Hi, cowboy! If you can't tell, I'm a cowboy by the tightness of my jeans. Come in for close inspection, cause they're busting at the seams. This Technicolor green shirt, polished fringe and snap, polished chrome, kicking spurs, and these purple sequin chaps. What ties it all together makes the women wanna dance. This big old hubcap buckle that I cinched up to my pants. This big old hubcap buckle that I cinched up to my pants. I told you I was a greenhorn. I'm gonna head on back to New York City. My feet are killing me.
Sweet.
Hey. I thought this might be a good choice. It's a shiny shirt for a shiny song.
Nice. Makes me feel well underdressed.
Well, I'm pantsless underneath the shirt, if that makes you feel better.
Well, I too am pantsless. So,
I'm
great
just
minds think alike.
I'm just like a big old Winnie the Pooh here.
Indeed. So, we're back for round 3 of Hillbilly Junction Boys live from the Junction.
Episode 3, Sup Dude. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the show notes. I mean, the song that you all just heard is called Cowboy Up. And before we wrote this song, what did you think of when you heard that phrase? What did that phrase mean?
Well, like cowboying up usually meant toughen up, like quit being a wuss, stick at it and take care of business and get things taken care of. But yeah, our twist on it was a little different.
Yeah, we kind of took the phrase and ran with it a little bit differently, and we talked about kind of, well, what would it be like if like a dime store cowboy were to try to become a real cowboy, and what all would he need, what all would he think he needed, and how would that go for him?
So you got to start then by explaining, Bud, what is a dime store cowboy?
Yeah, so I mean, when you grow up in the country, and especially on a ranch, I mean, everyone around you is a cowboy, whether they dress the part or not. And a dime store cowboy is someone who is kind of like a poser, you'd call them today. Someone who just dresses the part, but not even dresses authentically. Someone who really jangles it up with shiny clothes. For those of you who have watched Dumb and Dumber, when Jim Carrey gets rich and they go to the mall or whatever they do, and he comes out with the fringe down past his elbows, the big hats with the shiny bandana, with the shiny bands, the jewelry, the hubcap belt buckles, all those things that are just really for show.
Yeah, like they just walked into the the dime store, and bought, brand new fancy everything. Not the real thing at all.
Yeah. And so another word for someone like that is a dude. So there again, dude can mean so many different things. I mean, it's become a term basically just for a guy. I'm hanging with the dudes. I know that you and your son have time when you hang together. You just call it dudes being dudes. That's not the kind of dude we're talking about. When you talk about a dude in ranch language or country language, you're talking about someone who doesn't have a clue. They show up, and they might be dressed the part. They might even have read a book about cowboys or something, and but they don't know how to do anything.
And being called a dude, it's an insult.
Yeah. If you grow up in the country and someone calls you a dude, you're like, oh man, I really I really blew that. I gotta do better. So we back when we were growing up, one of the things that that cowboys did, and that wannabe cowboys did, was they wore really tight jeans. And this was kind of, I mean, it wasn't just the dudes, but it was the dudes really took it to a new level where they would. I remember when I was in college, I had neighbors in the dorm that were cowboys, and they would starch and iron their brand new Wranglers every morning so that they could wear the tightest, starchiest pants. And the one guy that we kind of was the inspiration for this song. We won't mention him by name, but he was a hired man of some of our friends, and I remember he was one of the biggest dudes that I'd ever seen.
Yeah, he really wanted to be the cowboy and had this vision of what cowboy life was, and went out and got all the right clothes and learned all the right lingo, and that's not what really makes you a cowboy. So you can dress the part, and you can put lipstick and makeup on a pig, but it's still a pig.
That's true. That is true. So,
Like you can put me in tight, stretchy pants and a flashy shirt, but I'm still just the same slob in tight, stretchy pants and a flashy shirt.
right. It's like anybody posing to do something. I remember, we have friends that, were big into motorcycles and Harley Davidson especially. And the real bikers would talk about the people who would trailer their bikes up to, within 30 miles of Sturgis and then take the bike out of the trailer and then drive it the 45 or 50 minutes to Sturgis and show up like they were part of the group. And that just doesn't happen. Some things in life, some positions you just have to earn, and people know when you're faking it.
Yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle choice, and it's not necessarily even where you're born or where you're raised. It's a mentality and understanding that the true meaning of Cowboy Up means, you stick at something, you come up with a way to get it done, and understand that there are going to be some bumps and bruises along the way. You get thrown off, you get back up and keep going, and those are just some life lessons. It's like when you're riding a horse, they tell you, you have to show the horse who's boss. If the horse bucks you off and you just give up, then the horse wins. But when you get back on and keep trying, then the horse gains respect for you, and then you form a bond that can't really be broken. And it's just good life advice too. We all fail in life, so there's always, you're getting bucked off, not the literal horse, the figurative horse. And cowboying up means you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back on and keep going. So it's just a good way to live your life.
Yeah, yeah. But the hero or the main character of our song isn't that. Um, so we talk a little bit about how he needs all of this gear, and so we talked about kind of the dime store cowboy. But I remember like growing up, I wanted to talk a little bit about rodeo because rodeo is a little bit different. Rodeo is where we saw a lot of this flashy clothing, but a lot of the guys in rodeo are real cowboys. Some are only cowboys in the sense that they are professional stock riders. But I remember seeing actual purple sequin chaps at some of those rodeos on some of the bronc riders.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Rodeo, it's a performance too. They're performing for the crowd, and you want to look flashy. Just like when we perform, you wear your red, you wear your red flashy shirt and your tight Texas tweed. It's all about the flash and dash and the appearance. But as Bud said, a lot of the rodeo cowboys, well, I mean, rodeo started with just regular ranch people. That's how the first rodeos actually started, getting together for the brandings like we talked about last time. And, they'd go out and try to break horses and try to ride horses. And it was just a way of life and a way of them to kind of entertain themselves. And then rodeos become a big business, and you don't need to grow up on a ranch to ride it.
Right. It's kind of like feats of strength. It's kind of like the Olympics for country people in a lot of ways, because just like Russell said, I mean, you're testing your mettle against other people doing the same things that you know how to do.
And it takes a different mindset. Like I've never intentionally rode a bucking horse.
Right.
I've ridden horses that have bucked before, but no, my primary intent was not to get on one that bucked. Have I ever ridden bulls? Oh yeah. But did I know that they were going to buck, or was I expecting them to buck? No, our bulls were tame, and you could climb on them out in the pasture and ride them around.
Yeah.
So there's I will be completely honest and upfront. Have I ever ridden a bucking bull? Not at all. I would not dare.
But also the bulls that we rode didn't have a didn't have a leather band around their balls either. That
would
tends
make
to
anybody buck.
But that you bring up a good point when you talk about that, because I had thought about that a little bit when I was kind of prepping notes for this podcast too,
which I read. That's why I've done this segue.
I know, and it's really good. See how this works where we can. This is what we're doing here. Cody asked me. She said, "Well, have you ever ridden a bull?" I was like, "No." Same reason. I have not, but we have ridden a couple of other things. We've ridden calves out of the chute. Tell the people what that's like.
Well, back when we were little, one of the, I guess, joys of branding before we were actually able to do a whole lot, besides push the calves up the chute, there were always like the last 3 or 4 calves that, however many kids were around at the time, you'd get an opportunity to ride them out of the chute.
Mm-hmm.
And, before we moved to the barn to brand, we used to brand out where our old corrals were, and coming out of the chute, there was this huge, well, if it rained at all, there was this huge water hole.
That wasn't really water. That's not mud. That's not mud, Chuckles.
Yeah, it was drain off from the corral. So, I mean, there was some rain in there and a lot of other stuff. It was not anything that you wanted to fall in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, riding the calves out of there, I mean, you would just wrap your arms around their neck. It was kind of like mutton busting.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen that, where you just grab fistfuls of wool and hold on. Kind of like that same premise. Those calves come running out of there. They don't really buck. I mean, a little bit of jumping. But most of us were smart enough or either not good enough to either fall off beforehand intentionally so we didn't make it to the water hole, or fall off unintentionally and not have to worry about getting to the water hole. But there was this one time, we won't name names, but this one person, was fully committed to the task of riding this calf.
Right.
And, I mean, flipped over and was like hanging underneath the calf, and the calf takes him straight through this cesspool of filth.
Yeah.
I mean, I admired the dedication. There was no prize to be won there.
Yeah, that's just it. There was no prize money, no purse.
But yeah, like Bud had said though, we've ridden calves. Another thing that I think everyone, should have an opportunity to ride, because that is not an easy animal to ride at all, is the boar, the male pig. My brother and I raised pigs, and we would ride the sows, and some of them, they'd go oh, 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 and they'd like run with you, and you just kind of bounce along.
Yeah, the pig is not a smooth animal. That's why they're not used typically for any type of transportation.
And their necks are not really long, so there's nothing really to wrap around, because I mean, their neck is like their whole body.
Yeah.
And you don't want to fall down and get stepped on by a pig. I mean, that would hurt. But we used to ride our boars, and I mean, we had some, I mean, that had big tusks. We had this one, and he'd stand there, and you'd scratch his back. And pigs, when they would really like getting scratched, I mean, they'd stretch way out, and their back would be arched. And he was really, really a gentle boar. And so we'd scratch him, and then one of us would get on him, and he would just stand there, wouldn't do a thing. But what the trigger was, you would spray him in the face with water. And so we'd have the hose hooked up, and we'd turn the hydrant on, and kind of, if Bud was on, I think his name was Hank, or what was his name?
I think it was Hank. Yeah,
Hank or Larry.
He was a black boar.
So, I mean, we wrote a lot of them, but so he'd just stand there, and, Bud would kind of give the nod, and I'd spray Hank in the face, and Hank would start, ho, 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 and he'd start spinning around.
Yeah.
And, I mean, pigs can't really buck, but he came about as close to bucking as possible. But I mean, he twirled around like a whirlwind, and I mean, he'd fling you off, and you'd go flying, and then he'd stop, and
good thing is he wouldn't try to butt you or run you over.
Yeah, probably pretty lucky that didn't happen, because a bull, they might try to gore you with their horns or butt you, but like if a boar chases after you, I mean, they bite onto you and tear you apart that way. So, you know, you look back on these things and yeah, was there some danger in it? Absolutely. Was there some stupidity involved? Most definitely. But were the results hilarious? Guaranteed.
Yeah, and I remember the other times that we rode them, I'd forgotten about the spraying them with the water when we actually intentionally rode them like a bucking bull. But I remember that when we'd feed the pigs, mostly in the afternoons, it didn't matter, but I mean mostly afternoons, they would hear
Gus was the boy that would spin around.
That's right.
Gus.
And they would hear the gate pull open. We had a metal gate with a spring on it, and you'd pull the latch back, and that spring would go, and all the pigs. We had up to 20 sows at one point with a boar, and they'd run in from it wasn't all that far away, maybe a couple 100 yards, but they'd run in to where the trough was, and we had a grain bin that had corn and different feed for the pigs, and you get a 5-gallon bucket, and one of us had to run and do that, and before you got ran over by the pigs, because they'd all come in there and they would just like swarm you.
A race against the clock.
Yeah, but one of the fun things to do was one of us would go out go around kind of, we had like a forest with some trees, and we'd go around back behind and through the barbed wire fence, and they wouldn't know that we were there to feed them. One of us would get on the boar, and then kind of like Russell said earlier, we'd kind of give the other guy a signal. Then he'd go ahead and open the gate, and then the whole herd of pigs and the boar would come in, and you'd ride the boar into the pen for feeding, and that was a lot of fun too, because they're surprisingly fast. I mean, they're not going to win any land speed records, but I think they also seem faster because they're lower to the ground, and you are just up and down. They are not smooth.
Yeah, there's not really anything to grab onto. Their hair is pretty coarse, so it's like slick. So you can't really grab like a fistful of hair, or there's no mane like you can grab on a horse. Squeezing with your knees kind of works. Their necks are so big around, you can't really wrap on there. But it was a rush. So if you've never had an opportunity, listeners, to ever ride a pig, you know, it's a great time.
Yeah, and I wonder now, like, I mean, as we're talking about it, I mean, they do have mutton busting, which you talked about earlier, and for those of you listening who don't know what it is, it's just sheep riding, but it's usually with real little kids, and they pick these big woolly sheep that haven't been sheared. So just like Russell said, they just grab a hold, they sit on them, you know, they kind of just more like lay on them and kind of hug them, and then that sheep, you know, I mean, you're not that far off the ground, and you'll see little kids doing the same thing that Russell described. If they'll get shook off, and then all of a sudden they're kind of laying underneath the sheep, kind of holding on to the wool, and you can't do that with a pig. So I'd be curious if they have
nothing to hold on to.
Yeah, I'd be curious if they had pig. They have pig races, but I don't think they ever have pig riding.
No, they have greasy pig contests trying to catch pigs, but I don't think I've ever heard of pig riding. Well, the thing is, I mean, like now as grown men, we couldn't really ride a pig unless it would, you know, no. It would have to be pretty big.
Have to be enormous, yeah. Well, and then, you know, Russell had talked about the boars potentially being mean and potentially being dangerous. We never had any problems with any of our boars, but we had a sow one time. Her name was Grandma, and she was a huge sow. I mean, what do you think she weighed?
Probably close to 800 or 900 pounds.
Yeah, she was really big, but she was really mean, and she would chase you if you had one of her piglets. And you know, when
that was a whole other ball game.
Yeah, when you hear the phrase like they squealed like a pig, it's true, because little pigs, when they're first born, I mean, they're maybe 4 or 5 pounds. They're very small, and they fall asleep so soundly that you can pick them up and hold them, and they won't even respond. Sometimes, I mean, if you didn't see them breathing, you'd think they were dead. So then you might walk around with them and pet them and hold them, and all of a sudden they wake up and they look around, and then they just start squealing to high heaven. And just like any good mom, when the sow hears that, she's on the move to come chase you. And with Grandma especially, we had to be real careful because she tried to take us down a couple times. Nothing ever happened, but she was one of those sows that if she'd got a hold of you, I think she would have done some damage.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, all those things that we look back on now and can laugh about. When it came time to wean the pigs, and you're in there with the mother sow, and you're grabbing them, and they're squealing, and some sows, could care less by that point. But then there are those others that, I mean, they would come after you, and you're grabbing a pig, you have one in each arm, you're running, and you see a 4-foot tall fence, and it's amazing how you can hurdle that thing with the sow like right on your heels as you dive over with these two pigs into the other side.
Yeah.
Or, sometimes pigs are really tough, and occasionally my brother and I would you would just fling the pig over the fence and dive yourself.
I remember that.
Whatever it would take to get out of the heat.
Yeah.
But as we've been talking here, we've used some names, like we've named our animals, and most people who have animals that are a little closer to them, or if they don't have tons, they give them names. And we're talking about how rodeo animals have the same way. I mean, there for a while, they'd introduce it, like this is Blue Shirt Copenhagen. This is White Hat Copenhagen. This is Copenhagen Junkie. This is Copenhagen Rattlesnake.
Yeah.
This is Skull Spit in the Eye.
Son of Copenhagen.
This is son of Copenhagen's grandpa's neighbor. So Copenhagen and Skull being big sponsors, their names were included a lot in naming the animals when we were growing up. I think now it might be like Monster drinks, and you see all of these DeWalt sponsors on their jackets, because just like NASCAR rodeo performers, they all have their sponsors. So this is DeWalt screwdriver. This is Wiley Monster energy drink. So like in our song Cowboy Up, we use the name Whirlwind to describe the bulls. So Bud, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so just like Russell said, I mean, they name the bulls mostly so they have a little bit of fanfare, like when the cowboy comes out, and they'll say, just like he said, he's riding Turd Rocket, and whatever. I mean, Turd Rocket, I don't know.
Turd Rocket hasn't been ridden for like the past 15 years. No one wants to ride Turd Rocket.
This is Red Rocket, son of Copenhagen. And so a lot of it was for the announcer, because they try to give these animals a personality too, because all of the animals in rough stock, I mean, they're, again, for people watching it who are from the city, they might think that these animals are being abused or anything, but that's the farthest thing from the truth. I mean, when you watch people who raise animals, especially rough stock animals, those animals are worth a lot of money, and they treat them really well, and so they really do take on personalities. And before we did this podcast, I was watching some highlights on rodeo, and we talk about, the song is obviously fictional, but I mean about him hooking his spleen, and I watched a highlight reel, or a low light reel, I guess you'd call it, of some of the worst wrecks at the NFR, and you watch these bulls, these 2,000-pound bulls. I mean, they can get off the air, all fours, 5-6 feet in the air, throw a cowboy 8 feet in the air, and then just come down on them, and it's crazy.
Well, the rough stock animals, yeah, they are well taken care of because they are so valuable, but they're also athletes.
Mm-hmm.
You think that they're being punished or whatever, that they don't enjoy what they're doing, but those rough stock animals, I mean, that's what they're bred for, and they enjoy that. It's like hunting dogs. Hunting dogs are bred for going out hunting. They enjoy that. They don't like just laying around. they need to be busy. They need to be doing that. Bucking bulls, they're not. Most of them aren't mean. Like you can watch YouTube clips of people that raise the bucking bulls, and they'll be in there all scratching them and gentle, and because they know that when they're not wearing that flank strap that's squeezing their nuts or tickling their nuts, not squeezing it so much, but that's when they know it's time to perform, and they know it's time to buck. They have a job to do. They go out there and do it. And there are some that they do try to come back on the cowboys and will go after them. And that's why you have your rodeo clowns and your bullfighters, more high end athletes there who's put their lives on the line each and every day to be between. I mean, it takes a heck of a person to be able to stand between some guy they don't even know and a 2,000-pound killing machine.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that when I was watching that highlight reel. Even the guys who pull the gate open, they're out there in the arena just like everybody else, and that bull comes unwound. That's the thing about nature, is it's totally unpredictable. I mean, you may be able to think you can control it, but you can't.
No, so it is. It's a dangerous sport, and it takes a different mindset to do it. And hats off to those that are willing to do it and really want to do it. They put in the time, and they have injuries, up and down. And it is a industry or a business where the cowboys, they can lose their life. There have been people that have died. So it's a dangerous thing. So our song is not to really poke fun at it. It's more so to poke fun at the wannabe cowboys, not the sport of rodeo and the bull riding. Yeah. But back to the name thing, they're big. I know a big name, and it's been quite a while, but one that most people that even aren't really connected to rodeo know is there was a Charlet bull named Bodacious. Yes. And Bodacious was one that had never been ridden, and it was like this huge record. There were trading cards. He was a celebrity. They'd take him places, and people would pay big money to see him. And I mean, talk about the owner of Bodacious made probably millions of dollars off this bull, and you can't tell me that those people aren't going to take care of their animals like that.
Right. Well, and then when you have an animal athlete like that, even after they're gone, they live on just like through stud, like racehorses do. So they collect semen, and who knows how many little Bodaciouses are out there.
They collect what?
Semen.
Oh, okay.
What do you think I said?
No, you said it pretty fast, like you tried to slip it in, thinking that someone would
tried to slip it in.
Yeah, no pun intended. Or you ended up with a lot of little Bodaciouses.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. Watching that process happen. I don't know if did you ever see it happen? The collecting it from bulls.
Yeah. Yeah, do we really want to have this conversation?
No.
This conversation was not in the script.
We'll let people who are listening who've not seen it Google it on their work computers and have to talk to HR. Just Google how to collect semen from a bull.
or don't.
Yeah. So wanted to now we've kind of talked a little bit about. Oh, there's one thing I wanted to talk about first. I wanted to show the people that are watching this where these words are contained. This is the songbook, the Hillbilly Junction Boys songbook, and
it's
here
high quality manuscript.
And here on page 45, still in its original Mylar. I don't know. Can you see that forward, or are you seeing it backward?
It's kind of blurry, but I'm seeing it right. I can read it. I mean,
okay.
It would be legible, but I mean it's blurry. I can't read it.
Okay, well, that's fine. That just means you're old. So this is Cowboy Up, and at the top it says written. These are all written by hand, by the way, scribed by
mostly by me.
Right? Yeah, because I would be playing the guitar, like coming up with, we'd come up with the tune together, but I'd have to be on the guitar to kind of fill in the music and everything. And so Russell would. Most of the songs in this book are handwritten by Russell. There's a couple that are almost indecipherable that are written by Dad. But anyhow, the fun thing for me to look back on these songs is we tried to write on each one what key the song is in, what year it was written in. This one is written in 2001. I don't know if you can see that. And then at the top it says, last line, Russell says something smart. I told you I'm a greenhorn, I'm going home. So I don't know if the version that you listened to beforehand has that, because at the end of one version we say something like, I'm going back to where?
New York City.
New York City.
Well, and that's why I'm glad you were talking about this, because that's where I was going to go. Because we were talking when we sing Under These City Clothes Lies a Cowboy. We sing it up really twangy. We really lay it on thick. So it's funny that you went there, because I was just thinking that, without interrupting, I was going to say, yeah, and if you listen to the song, you'll notice that it's done it with quite the twang, and that was intentional.
Gosh, I hope it was intentional.
Yeah, so you just get the twang in there and just really, really drive home the fact that this guy was a dude.
Yeah, he ain't got a clue. Yeah. And the hubcap buckle. We talk about that in the chorus of the song. I don't know how many dime store cowboys. Now the thing is, a belt buckle is a prize for a lot of rodeo events and different things too. And
but
so
it's something that's earned.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is the hubcap buckle kind of that people have earned through through rodeo and different challenges, but a lot of times there again, with the dudes, you'd have them you can buy these large, shiny belt buckles anywhere. The belt buckle gets bigger, like the fish, every time.
I like to buy mine from senior citizen sales from the little old ladies, where most of my jewelry for my ensemble came from.
Yeah, sometime we'll have an episode where we'll talk about all the gear for our costumes and different things, and we probably will share even the song. I think it's called This Hillbilly's Hat. You remember writing that one?
Yep. Oh yeah.
So that talks a little bit about the costume that we wear, where this song is more about just the costume of this crazy character. But we wanted to maybe leave on a serious note. We've talked a lot about kind of these dime store cowboys and dudes, but we wanted to also include a little bit of a conversation about our grandpa, our mom's dad, who passed away when I was 5 and Russell was 3, so that's been way too long ago. But he was a real cowboy, and I remember hearing, we were going to have Mom on this podcast, but I remember hearing stories about him being a cowboy at a very young age. This is probably what, Russell, the 20s, early
Probably.
30s maybe?
Yeah, 20s.
So, the world was a completely different place anyhow, but the life of a cowboy in the 20s and 30s, it was a lot like what you see in authentic Western movies. A very difficult job, sleeping under the stars, bringing in the herd and all of those things. And he was a big inspiration for us growing up, even though we really didn't get to know him. And it wasn't I'll just talk for just a little bit and I'll let Russell share. For me, it wasn't so much about the actual skills that he knew how to do as a cowboy, the riding and the roping, although that was important. And I know that was a big part of Mom's growing up, learning to love horses and different things. But for me, it was more about what I heard about his character as a cowboy, the honesty, the fairness, the toughness. I mean, the phrase "Cowboy Up" didn't happen until, I don't know, maybe early 2000s, maybe the 90s. I mean, but Grandpa Charlie, and well, we won't share names for kids or anything on this, but Grandpa Charlie, all of those characteristics were embodied in this one man, and just the stories about how he lived his life those ways really helped to shape who we are. Go ahead and share if you have anything else to add.
Oh yeah, like Bud said, you know, cowboys, they can all ride, they can all rope, they can all do the basic stuff with horses and cows, but it goes far more than that. And looking at our grandpa, it was a way of life, and it was character, it was his integrity, how he dealt with people, honesty, how a handshake was better than any written contract. I mean, you shook somebody's hand, you looked them in the eye, it was a commitment that you were going to live by.
Yeah.
Your name, building a name, and knowing that your name is who you are, and your name carries weight where you go. Like his name, our mom's maiden name, it carries a lot of weight for a lot of people because of the life, the way he lived his life, and the things that he did, as well as our grandma too. I mean, we say cowboy, but I mean, she was a cow woman, cowboy,
Yeah.
probably more than most too. And it took her feeding and doing all the stuff behind the scenes. And yeah, it's a way of life. And like Bud said, it helps us try to model ourselves after him, how he interacted with people. And growing up, hearing the stories about him, and one of the songs that Grandpa always would sing old cowboy songs to us, and kind of what I mean, I sing them to my kids, like going back to bull riding, the old flying U.
Yeah.
I always thought Grandpa made up that song.
Right? Yeah, I do too.
He didn't, but it's a great song, and I mean, I sing it back to the kids, and it, they love it. They call it the bull song.
Yeah.
And every night at bedtime they want to hear the bull song, especially my youngest daughter. And I was 3 when we lost him, and I don't remember a lot, but I do remember those things. And it's a way of life, that I guess, as I'm rambling here, it's just not so much what you wear, but it's who you are and how you represent yourself with the character and integrity. So, looking people in the eye, shaking their hand, and Grandpa was always full of sayings. Mean what you say and say what you mean. There's a place for everything, and everything in its place. And those aren't just cliche, cool rhymes. It's a way that he lived his life, and building fence, doing the grunt work, whatever your job was, you did it as best as you could, because it was a reflection and a representation of you.
Well, and the world was a lot smaller then too, and especially in rural communities, even now, your word means so much, because when you live in the city, and I mean, this podcast is not to downplay people in the city, but it's easier to hide and to find resources. You don't need to depend on people as much. But when you grow up in a rural setting, your integrity matters, and if they know that they can trust you and they know that you're going to be there for them with integrity, then you'll have people there for you when you need them too. And I've seen that several times. I've seen, in our community growing up, and just you hear stories around the nation, when these small communities get in trouble, people show up because more likely than not, that person helped you brand every year, or that person maybe lent you a trailer when your trailer was broken, or just little things like that the country lifestyle has a little bit more of, I think, than the rest of the world. Just because you can't hide and because you have to depend on others.
Absolutely. That might be a good place to end it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. But I wanted to end it on a little bit of a funny note. I mean,
bring the humor back.
All I can remember is I can remember hearing a recording of Grandpa singing one of those songs, and he was not a good singer. I mean, when you listen to his voice, I mean, he'd be like, "Was biding my time." I don't know. You go on with the words, but I mean, at the old Flying U. He had a very distinctive voice and everything, and so we have all these memories with these wonderful songs that mean so much. But he wasn't a good singer.
Oh yeah, I know that. Well, speaking of that, I know Mom has one cassette, and he's kind of talking, and I'm guessing it's probably me, but he's talking, and all of a sudden you hear him, "What are you doing? Get out of there!"
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, I mean, he was tough.
I don't know what we were doing, but we were somewhere we shouldn't have been.
Well, but that's the thing too. I mean, someone like that with character and toughness, and they were also fair. And so, if you got in trouble by someone like our grandpa, it was for a reason. It's not because he was trying to be mean. That's just more of that character. So, yeah, I think this is a good place to stop. I hope you all have enjoyed this podcast. This is episode number 3. We're looking at episode number 4 next, and I'm going to just check real quick and see.
I was going to say, yes, episode 4 comes after episode 3.
Yeah, that's right. So,
and directly before episode 5.
So, episode 4 up next. Thanks for listening. This is Bud Catfish Dickerson signing out.
Biff Bobcat Rogers, Cowboy Up.
Cowboy Up.